What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Empire Radio Podcast. I'm Andrew,
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
and today, getting philosophical.
Ooh.
uh, Today's going to be a deep episode. Maybe, I don't know. Probably will be.
Might go really
Because
quick. It might go really long. We don't know.
Yeah, it might be really fast. Who knows? And it might go very long. But we don't. That's the fun of recording a podcast. You know, there's
You
still
never
parts
know
of
what
it-
you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. To quote one of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah, you're right. So today, we are going to be covering a content idea that was submitted by one of our Discord members. And we're going to be talking about something that's related to the Light of the Jedi High Republic book, kind of loosely
Yeah.
ish. And that is, if we were Jedi, the three of us, or Sith, I guess it doesn't matter, Force users in general, how would we view the Force? So that's a pretty large question.
Yep. Just because based on the book that we read, there's different imageries of how the Jedi see and understand the Force, and so
Correct.
I always forget their names because Elzer, man, he saw it as a vast ocean.
Yep.
Bell, he saw it as fire, and then Avar Chris saw it as music.
A song.
And then was there a couple other that were listed?
Um,
I thought there were, but I forgot to look in the book, like just
There
before
might
they're
have
about
been.
to do the thing. But
yeah, I mean those are kind of the three main ones that they kept returning to.
yeah,
So those are different examples, and I think, this was one of the first books to do that, to explore the inner workings
yeah,
of how a Force user encounters the Force, what it looks like, what it feels like, those sorts of things. Because in recent novels, both expanded universe and canon, it's been a lot of like they opened themselves up to the Force completely.
right.
Where it's like, okay, cool, but what
does that
does
even
it look
mean?
like? So that's what we're talking about today. But before we get too in depth into that, we do have a few things that we need to discuss. First and foremost, if you're a recurring listener, you know all of this right now. But if you're not, and if you're new, first of all, welcome. We're
Hello
glad you're
there.
here. Hello there. This is when whoever you are on the other side, you say General Kenobi. That's the appropriate answer.
Yep.
And
If you don't, you're listening to the wrong podcast.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
You're always welcome here, even Star
You're
Trek fans.
I don't know about that. we draw the line.
Hey, we
You
have
know,
a
if you-
Star Trek channel on our Discord.
And it
so-
only
Well-
gets used to make fun of me. I don't. There's nothing else about that thing.
Okay, well that's a good segue into the first piece of information that a new user might want to listen to, and that is we do have a Discord. So if you're into Discord, if you use Discord, and you want to connect with us directly, this is the way to do it. This is going to be the best way to do it. If you go to our Facebook and on our Instagram, so the link is in our bio on our Instagram, and it is a pinned post on our Facebook page. You can hit the invite link and be added to the Discord that way. We talk about Star Wars, anything and everything Star Wars on the Discord. Canon stuff, EU stuff, memes. There's some great memes
Yep,
every week.
definitely.
I'm always excited to see what memes are there when we get done recording. But we talk about the TV shows, we talk about the books, we talk about rumors and theories, everything Star Wars you can think of. We talk about it there. And so if that is a way, or if you've wanted to interact with us, that's the way to do it. Secondly, if you want to interact with us live while we're recording these episodes, we do stream the recordings of these episodes live on Twitch. That is twitch.tv/Empire Radio. You can come, you can join, and be a part of the chat while we're recording these live. It's a lot of fun. At the very least, Drew and I are going to be watching the chat for sure. Jeremiah doesn't do that, but maybe one day he will. Who knows?
Yeah. If not, you
But I
can
will-
continue to make fun of him in the chat.
Yeah.
What?
What?
I can
That
go
is-
back and look if I want to see what's really
You
going
could go
down.
back, but it doesn't matter.
I
It's
mean,
in the past.
You could.
The past
but,
is
yeah.
the past.
So
Young
if
Padawan.
you want to interact with us live as we're doing this, Twitch is a great way to do it. Because depending on the episode content, depending on what we're doing, a lot of times we will be reading comments, interacting with our viewers, and depending on the content, like I said, we will be asking for your opinion in the Twitch chat as well, and we'll be talking about what your opinions are. And then last but not least, social media. We are on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Empire Radio Podcast. And then YouTube, Empire Radio, a Star Wars podcast. Go check us out there. Give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, whatever is applicable to the social media platform you're on. And keep up with us there. We haven't been posting there quite as much, especially on Instagram and Facebook, other than announcing, the release of the episodes. But we do have a plan to get back on that. And, of course, YouTube. We are recording the live stream, the video versions of the live streams, and posting them on our YouTube following the recording of the podcast. So
Yes.
you can't make the Twitch stream, but you want to see the video version, which there's always little things that you'll miss if you don't watch the video version. You can watch those in hindsight, just not live. So
Yes.
again, that was at youtube.com, search Empire Radio, a Star Wars podcast.
Now on Instagram, there was a picture that was posted this week that I posted about this really cool toy shop in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to go
did.
check that out,
Yep.
I got an really old toy and a new one. So go check out that Instagram post if you want to know more about some cool
For sure.
places to shop in Chicago.
For sure.
Yeah.
And another way, a little known way, honestly, you probably know about this if you're a reoccurring listener, but another way that you can get in contact with us is by leaving us a voicemail on our anchor.fm website. So it's anchor.fm/empire-radio, correct? That's the one with the dash in it, right?
Yes.
Yes. There's so many links that I have to keep in my head. Okay, so anchor.fm/empire-radio.
It's under this video. Just go click it.
You're correct.
Or
so
where
we do
you're
have the
listening.
option to leave a voicemail. And for the first time ever, we have a voicemail to listen to from a listener live on air from a listener named Lucy. We have that queued up. So are you guys ready? I mean, it's basically all about Jeremiah. So Jeremiah, are you ready?
Yep, I've heard it. So
Yeah. You ready, Drew?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Here we go.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucy and I'm a longtime listener of Empire Radio. Your podcast has really helped me through the quarantine and it's really fun to listen to your opinions and jokes about Star Wars. Jeremiah's fanfiction is super cool and I can't wait for season 3. I hope you somehow incorporate Ahsoka into the plot, but you would probably need to do a time jump to after she joined the rebellion for it to make sense. My favorite Star Wars character of all time is Ahsoka, so it would be great if you did a podcast episode about her and her journey. Or, if Jeremiah is willing to read yet another book, do an episode about the Ahsoka novel. I agree 100% that the final arc of Clone Wars is better than all the movies. I personally don't like any of the movies nearly as much as the TV shows, although I wouldn't go so far as to say the first half of all the movies are trash. Thank you so much for making the podcast. I look forward to all your future episodes. May the Force be with you.
That
All
was
right.
cool. That was pretty
That
cool.
was really cool. That brought joy to my heart. I love hearing from all of you because we wouldn't be doing this without you. So
Yeah.
things like the Discord and these voicemails they really mean a lot to me personally. Not to get too mushy, but I love it. So there's a lot in that voicemail.
Yep.
But basically, Jeremiah, she agrees with you on everything.
Except for the trash
everything.
part.
Yeah, except for the trash part.
See, Lucy and I just get Star Wars. Like, we just get more
Except
than you
you don't read the Ahsoka novel.
She does want you to read that book, so.
Yeah.
I'm more strongly inclined now to get the book because the fans are demanding it.
Oh.
Okay, so
do you both have it, right?
I don't have it, but I would buy it, and I'd buy it on the way
That's
home
good.
tonight if you want to do it.
Well, we'll read it in the near future. How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
Because
so
the more after I heard this, I was like, I should read this book. I like Ahsoka too.
it's
Like,
really,
why would I
it's
want to
really
read
good.
this book?
I haven't finished it, but I read like the first 2/3 of it.
Gotcha.
Before I got distracted with another book that came out. I think it was like one of the Thrawn, like the first run of the Thrawn canon novels came out, and I was like, sorry, I got to read this new book first.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't the audio version read by Ashley Eckstein?
I don't know.
Ooh.
I think it is. I think I think she reads it.
Oh, I hope so.
But yes, Lucy,
so
we'll get on that, and thank you for the kind words about the Bad Batch. And I'm I have very little thought into third season. I really gotta get on that. But
what that means is that
if I read the Ahsoka novel first,
yeah,
see how possibly she could fit in if I even want to put her in. So we'll figure it out. But yes,
awesome.
But Lucy, here's my personal invite for you to join us on Discord because I could use someone more like you. We could tag team like arguing people down how they're wrong about everything. Like it would just be great. So you
oh my
God.
And we could use Lucy in Discord as well to help us with Jeremiah thinking the first half is trash. So
yeah, we need someone to relate to him on a common ground and then say, hey, by the way, about A New Hope,
you're wrong.
Convince me the first half is not trash. See, if there's anyone in this world that can do it, it's probably gonna be Lucy because she just gets Star Wars. So
well,
Lucy,
I mean, we could just plan an episode where Drew and I
we'll just call
like
Lucy.
Educate me.
We'll just call Lucy. And just have her yell at Jeremiah without him even knowing it. The whole time.
Yeah, I mean, we could create an episode where Drew and I, our sole goal is to convince you that the first half of A New Hope is not trash, but that's for a later date. All right,
but with that being said, if you want to hear your voice on this podcast, that is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And just leave us a voicemail or also jump into Discord and leave us suggestions on episodes you want us to do. Cause then,
I mean, we literally have a content suggestion thread channel that, whatever you want to call it, that you can give your ideas. And the next like 3 episodes have all been ideas from people in our Discord. So it's these are things that we actually do. It's not like we say, oh, that's cute. And we don't do it.
Go ahead.
This is actually a thing that we do. So
and like we've been saying since the beginning of 2021 that this year for sure is a way to get connected with you guys, the fans, more.
Yes.
And so far, we're in month 2 still. We've been getting a lot really connected with you guys, and we're loving it so far. So keep it up. Keep up the good work, you guys.
All right. So Lucy, in summation, thank you for sending that in. And anybody else? Anchor.fm/Empire-Radio, or hit the link below and send us a voicemail. We would love to hear it.
Also, Lucy, if you want to leave another voicemail about any more things, just go ahead, do it.
Yeah, there's not a limit.
No limit.
All right. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and fly on over for the main chunk of this episode, shall we?
Yep.
Sure.
All right. So we're talking about the Force. We're talking about how we would view the Force if we were Force users. Like Jeremiah said, this is stemming from the Light of the Jedi novel because of how well it allowed us to kind of view the internal workings of how people saw the Force. I think it's a fascinating addition to that story because I feel like everyone, before I read this novel, I felt like everyone did experience it differently. But obviously there was no substantial proof whether they did or not. And so this was a really cool way of personifying the relationship between the Jedi and the Force that we see in this book. And so one of our Discord, like I mentioned earlier, one of our Discord members said, hey, you guys should talk about how you would view the Force. And here we are. So I don't really have a specific way that I would like to go about doing this, because at the end of the day, I feel like this is just going to end up being a free-for-all discussion anyways,
Right.
because of the way we do things. So I am very open to suggestions if you just want to go one by
Well,
one.
how about this? What were your guys' like process to determine how you would view it? Like, because it was really difficult for me because I didn't really know. Like, if you think about it, in the book, they didn't choose for themselves how they saw it. It was just what happened to them. So, like, obviously now we're choosing what we would think. So we're kind of analyzing how we think as a person or how we live our lives, where it would be similar. So, like, there's that aspect. But like, was it hard for you guys to come up with an analogy?
It was because unfortunately the Force isn't real, and
That you know
like,
of.
yeah.
You're just not force sensitive, okay?
Oh my gosh. But like obviously it's hard to describe how I would relate to something that I don't like. I can't actually relate. I mean, it's like the same thing when, as a male, you try to imagine. This is a terrible, weird example, but like what childbirth is like. Like we'll never fully know what that is in the same way as a woman. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, or the struggles of another people group, or
Yeah.
someone else who is, if like you have a friend that's like shattered one of their arms or something and you've never broken a bone. Like it's one of those things that you can imagine it, but at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of source material you can draw from because
Right.
of, or I would say lack thereof of source material. And so that was the thing that I was like, I have one or two things that might make sense, but at the end of the day, like, I don't really know
Yeah. The way
what this would actually be like.
Yeah, the way I described it, like the way I thought about it is the way I've always thought about it, in the sense of like it's kind of like the way it's been always described to us in the movies and in the books, and the way I kind of picture how it works. I don't know. I don't want to say too much right now, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say too much without actually saying how I actually feel about it. But the way I view it before is the way that I kind of figured out how I actually view it, in the sense of if I was a Jedi. I actually never really thought that deep into it, but I kind of got it. But yeah.
Okay. Jeremiah, how about you?
I was kind of like looking at like how I think as a person, like how I think, and try and figure out like an illustration on a real life thing, and so, or an imagery that could relate to how I normally think, and so
Right.
So it'd be interesting if they were to ever dive in more in the books about how people individually saw the Force, like if there was a stronger connection on why that imagery is what the Force revealed to them as. Like, is it because of this and reasons? Like, this is why the Force chose to will this to be their imagery or not? Like, it'd be cool to do that. If it was like they already had an existing way of thinking and it just came alongside as a similar way of thinking. Because, like, Avara Chris, like, hers is music. Like, that's something, like, writing and playing music, that's, like, a real-life thing that also could translate into the Force.
Right.
Same with, like the ocean. Like, you can understand how the ocean works and then have that same imagery, like, this is how the Force works. So it's like a comparison that's, like, equivalent to an already existing thing.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting before we dive into each of our opinions that there is a good amount of evidence to support the fact that a Jedi is born, or I would say a Force-sensitive user, or a Force user, or whatever, Force-sensitive individual is born with a natural feeling or relationship to the Force. Because like for instance, Rey, for example, says in I think it's The Last Jedi where she's like, I feel like there's always been something there, but it's just now awakened. So like there's a feeling, there's something there that a lot of Force users can feel from the time that, as far back as they can remember, at least when they were very young. And they might not be able to put the words to it, but there's a general feeling in one way or the other. And I think that is the thing that is, as the Force user matures, is personified in one way or the other, So I feel like, instead of them necessarily choosing how they view the Force, I think it's more of kind of a guided progression or development over the course of time where it's like, I kind of had this experience with the Force and this type of feeling as I was growing up and as I was younger, and it just naturally progressed into an ocean or a song, or you know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily like I don't believe that it was something that they chose. I think it was, or something that they used because they needed a way to relate to it better. I think it's something, human, very similar to the way humans perceive the things that they're more naturally inclined to do. So for me, I've always been able to feel and hear music a certain way, and that's helped me as a musician. Now it's just a more developed version of that. It's a more mature version of that kind of natural sense. Same way with, someone who is incredible at swimming from a very early age. Those natural kind of inclinations of the way the water feels and the way they view things. So I'm rambling at this point, but that's kind of like that's the context that I wanted to provide in hopes that it would help.
Right.
So. Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Go first.
Hey, I said that.
Well, I just talked for a while, so not me.
All right, I'll
True.
Go.
Oh.
No, I said nose goes.
Oh, okay, Jeremiah, you can go.
I'll go. So, I had like 2 ideas at first.
Okay.
And they're really lame. And then I try to like, what's a better way to take the same idea but make more sense? Because like, my first one was like, have you guys seen the new Pixar film Soul?
So good, yes.
I haven't yet.
It's mediocre at best. But,
Whoa!
But
I think it's the best Pixar
boy.
movie ever made.
Okay, you take that back.
I'm not. It's that good.
Okay, this week on our Pixar podcast, we're gonna flesh that out.
Okay, the magic one that was
that's like, coming out.
No, the one previous.
Are you
before
talking
Soul.
about the one with like the trolls and stuff?
Yeah.
And
that one's
like,
pretty good
centaur?
too.
That was Onward.
That was Onward.
Yeah, that might be my favorite.
That was good.
That was good, but Soul's better.
Okay. Anyway, there's a scene in the movie where
spoiler for Soul, I guess.
It's like one of the characters is going through a giant warehouse of file cabinets.
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of how I was thinking, like, because like I'm very like this is why I didn't choose this one.
True. Hold on. This actually makes a lot of sense.
No, it does. That's why it's funny because that's so Jeremiah.
But I thought it was lame. So because like I'm very analytical and like fact-based and very what are the searchable results that I could do to find something. So like I wanted like the forces I like a giant warehouse of file cabinets where I can go and search out information whenever I want. But I was like, that's kind of lame. But then I kind of like translated it to like a library, which would make more sense of trying to discover. I could always look for a book on this aspect of the Force, and I could go there and learn about the Force. And then once I learn it, but then I was like, when looking at the examples in the Light of the Jedi that were given, like fire, ocean, music, they're more like natural, organic things.
Right.
And so like I didn't want to do like a man-made imagery. And so something that was more natural based was something that I went with. And so like, when you play video games, and like especially with like an open world game, you have the map,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's all like gray, and there's nothing beyond it. But as
Until
you
you
go
open
through
it
the
up.
map, it opens up, and
That's
once
pretty
you get
cool.
there, once you cover an area, it's always there for you to see and know. And so I kind of pictured it as like the Force is this vast open world, and I can't see anything of it other than what I can see in the horizon and see with my touch with my hands. But as I walk and move through it,
That's pretty cool.
I see more of the terrain. I see
What
more.
the heck?
That's
I
a
know
good. Jeremiah
where-
should have went last.
Yeah. You definitely should have went last. That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
And like you can maybe, once you learn something, where, okay, this is like my favorite part on the map. Like this is where I can go back and retreat. Like this is where I know my area. But this over here is kind of like a dangerous area. I don't know if I want to venture in that area. But like once you learn it, you know where everything is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an endless open world to discover. And once you discover it, you always have access to it.
That's cool.
That is so fascinating.
That would be really cool.
Because there's so much of that's rooted in like cognitive association.
Well, it's like
which is
once
like-
you learn something,
Which is a legitimate thing. Like that's a thing, you know? Oh man, that's so
that's cool.
That's so fascinating. Like I want to sit here and think about it.
Yeah, because like it's
because
still
it makes sense.
It's still me searching out and discovering, just like a room full of file cabinets of the Force.
Yeah.
Like so,
But
like,
it's more
that
of a physical, natural thing
thing
than
that
just you
that
sitting,
people could relate to.
going like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's cool.
Man, that's so cool.
Stole my idea, but that's cool.
oh okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
There's so much of what you said that is like rooted in like psychology. Though I don't have the knowledge to give you the specifics, but like there's so much of that is realistic enough where I'm like, oh, that could actually work. You know, like that could actually be a legitimate thing. If the Force were an actual thing. Man, that's really cool. Bravo. I should not have let you go first, but bravo.
Drew.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Drew,
go.
Go ahead.
So what I was talking about earlier, the way I've always viewed the Force as like a kid and stuff is, you guys probably won't like it, but in episode 1, when they're talking about midichlorians, hey, let me talk. When they're talking about the count, I've always like seen it as like not like blood vessels, but like something that like more like pixels in people's like being, in a sense. And so, but kind of in the sense of more when you use it, it's more like waves. And that's what we've seen visual, like in games, you know, like I spent 3 hours today playing Battlefront 2. Like when you use a Force character, it kind of like pushes in waves. And I've always visually seen it like that, where like you can, as a Force user, you can see the waves around you, and it's up to you to control them or not, in a sense. And that's how I've always seen it. Like, it's more of like a physical thing, which makes sense why like ocean would make sense, or like music, because music has sound waves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was reading this book, it all of that really made sense to me, because it's like, oh yeah, of course, because it's flowing through everything, it's touching everything, but only Force users can actually see it and control it and manipulate it and do things with it. So that's the way I've always seen it. Like, if I was a Force user, I would see it more of like, not maybe, kind of like the way like we visualize sound waves. Like, you know when you're a kid and they're like, this is what a sound wave looks like in these like books and stuff. Like when you're playing music and stuff, they show what a sound wave would look like, essentially, which we can't visually see it. That's the picture that I would see like around people. And then like if if I saw another Force user, I could like they would like flow different, like they would look differently, like maybe glow a little bit differently, where I could tell that they're able to control the waves the way I am. Like almost like they would stand out. Like certain people would stand out because I could tell, like almost like they're glowing. That's the way I've always seen it. But
interesting. Huh. Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of the most recent episode of WandaVision.
well, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I need to watch it. I know I need to watch this. I'll do it this weekend. I'll just sit down and watch all of them.
So good. There's one scene in this last episode, episode 7.
Spoilers.
Kinda
3, 2, 1. Oh.
Exactly what you kind of described.
Gotcha.
Visually seeing waves and stuff.
Yeah. That's just the way I've always seen it. Because, like, when they were describing, like, the midichlorian counts and, like, he had more, like, they knew, like, I don't know. It just seems like it's more like, I almost see, like, if I was a Force user, right, and I knew you guys were and I could see you, you guys would, like, almost, like, highlight glow a little bit. Like, have, like, an aura around you that's, like, more, not as intense as in Dragon Ball Z when they power up and become Super Saiyan, but, like, there's, like, a glow thing about you that you guys can, like, control the ways of the Force the way I could. That's just the way I've always seen it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Dragon Ball, I came up with a Dragon Ball joke a while ago.
Oh.
Now I've never seen it or any of these characters, but
Wait,
I
what?
came up with a joke.
Oh.
Okay,
So it's probably not going to be
the
that good.
character Vegeta, right?
Vegeta?
Vegeta, whatever,
Vegeta.
whatever.
Yeah, Vegeta. Yeah.
What do you call Vegeta when he's scared?
What?
A chicken Vegeta.
Okay, get out of here. Okay, I'm mad because that was lame, but I'm also mad because that was really good simultaneously, and you haven't seen the show.
That's probably the worst joke we've ever said on this. But it makes sense. But it's
I have to give it to him. That was honestly, that was pretty good.
All right. Anyway, whatever. But Andrew,
so I had a hard time with this, because to me the Force has always been something, the way that I visualized it, as that you would open yourself to. It's always there. It's always moving. It's always in motion, because I mean the Force does lie in, and this is canon, in life and in death and in balance, in the natural order of living things. So like it's always been something that is there that you open yourself to, or like we know in The Last Jedi and in other, supplemental material, you can close yourself off to entirely, but then simultaneously it's something that you grasp. So it's not just this thing where you open it to and you're just there together, but it's this thing that you can open yourself to, but then you can grasp. And so I've had a really hard time trying to find something that's both of those things, because I thought about, potentially it being, I don't know, like doors or tents where you can continuously go into deeper levels and explore, kind of like Jeremiah, you were talking about, where you can like explore new things and there's always more on the horizon to learn. But then at the same time, if I were to go with that specific illustration, there's nothing to grasp. You open the door or you go through the tent or the curtain or whatever, but then what is there? How do you access that power? So things like the flame that Bell, envisions makes a lot of sense to me, because I wouldn't imagine that it would burn him, obviously, but you can reach out and you can grasp those things. You can tap into that power. And so, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know if I have like a great specific thing where, Drew, you've got your sound waves, and Jeremiah, you have this kind of expansive map type deal. Like, I don't know. I mean, there is a part of me that resonates most with the idea of the ocean and the body of water, because you can feel the ebb and the flow. You can feel the power that runs through it in waves, and yet it's got that expansive quality to it. Um, you know, there's a part of me that resonates with the musical example. All, obvious musical ties aside, because music um, is expansive, infinitely expansive, because there are infinite combinations in which you can place notes together in a different harmony and in different dynamics. But then at the same time, harmony and dynamics are both things you feel, you resonate with. Um, for example, the way that you hear a minor chord versus a major chord, one sounds darker and more, angry, for lack of a better phrase, but then one sounds happier and more bright, bright and light and whatever. But maybe this is super lame, but like I don't know if I would truly be able to know unless I grew up with the Force, which is why I said what I said earlier, because I feel like it would have to be something. I've always been very a visual person, especially mentally. Like I can visualize things very, very easily and very specifically. Like when I'm reading books or if someone's telling a story, like I'm placing things together, and I can very vividly imagine entire landscapes and environments, and like I'm really good with directions. I can retrace like specific landmarks and things on the side of the road. Like I know that's super weird, but like I've always been very visual, so
That's
I
a
know
music thing.
I know it would be very visual in nature.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it would have to be. But at the same time, it would have to be something that there's a sort of interaction with the power and the sensations and stuff like that. So truly, I guess the closest thing would be like an ocean type deal, But outside of that,
I was kind of thinking maybe for you like a maze, or like a system of caverns and stuff within a side
Like
of mountain.
Zelda?
I
like
never
Breath of the
played
Wild.
Zelda, so I have no idea.
It's okay.
The only Nintendo I've ever played was like
I forgot your
the NES
PlayStation
and like
person.
GameCube at like a friend's birthday party in middle school. Like,
Okay. That's fair.
That's
That's
fair.
fair.
That's fair.
But in
I
Breath
might
of the
be getting a
Wild,
Switch because the new Star Wars game. So
Yes.
yes,
And you need to, so that we can all play online together.
yes, and stream it. That'd
Yeah.
be dope.
But
That'd
that's
be
beside the
cool.
fact.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
So yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I know it would probably be something natural. Like there's a part of me that wants to say, of course it would be something related to music, but like I don't know. I don't know if that.
Yeah,
don't
you
know if
definitely
that's-
should have won first.
yeah.
So sorry to be the letdown of the three of us.
I
but
thought you would have definitely done something with like music, or like. But I think visual makes more sense. It would have to be something visual for you, which is why it was very visual for me, and it's
Yeah.
always been visual for me, because like even before we knew that people saw it differently, we kind of always assumed people probably
Yeah.
did. And so like for me, that's why like as a little kid, I remember like picturing what the Force would do just because of glimpses of what we've seen. And like, like when you play Battlefront, you like the Force push, and it actually shows like almost like a wave, like a shaking motion through before it hits someone. That's what I've always like visually seen what the Force can do, and that's why I picked mine. Was like that's what makes the most sense for me.
Well, it is interesting because speaking musically, even when I'm listening to a song, there is a visual, like a mental visual element to it in some way, shape, or form. So I'm either and I've never put this to words. Like this is the first time I've ever put any of this to words, so bear with me. But like there's either some sort of a song structure. So if I've listened to the song before, I know what parts of the song are coming. So we've got a verse, we've got a pre-chorus, we've got a chorus, whatever, blah blah blah. So in some ways it's compartmentalized into smaller sections, in which each is its own ecosystem harmonically and rhythmically. And so sometimes the visualizations are like blocks where I know what's coming and what's in order. Sometimes if it's, something super complex and much less I would say standard, I guess, as far as songs are concerned. It would be something instead of blocks or something routine or like their own little ecosystems or whatever. It would just be more of like a super abstract painting or something. But I view it left to right too, from start to dude, it's super weird. It's really weird. So maybe it is music. Maybe it would be something related to music.
Yeah.
Or art, or a combination of the two. I don't know, but I those are the things that I resonate with most. So
That's fair.
yeah.
Something I was pondering as I was thinking of this concept of how we would view the Force, because like this is like we are introduced to this idea in this book, but when we get to the Skywalker saga, we don't see that imagery. And obviously it's just because they want to come up with a cool idea for a new book series, but I wonder if they would somehow canonize why we don't see those same ideas in the Skywalker saga. Because when we get to the Skywalker saga, they're starting to get weak in the Force and get blinded to the Force because of the rise of the dark side. And I wonder if that could be because they lost sight of the individualistic understanding of the Force and wanted to teach a general thing of the Force where people couldn't,
like a mass-produced version of it.
Yeah. And so because of that, because people couldn't live out their natural way of thinking of the Force, that weakened the Jedi and that aided the Sith to rise again.
Well, and that makes sense why Ahsoka never... That could make sense why Ahsoka, side is different and why she is more powerful with the Force without even being a Jedi necessarily. Because she did find her own way to view the Force and her own way to, stay with it. Because she, as of what canon as we know, she never got disconnected. She never turned it off. Even though she's not a Jedi, she just never just turned it off. So it'd be really interesting to see if that is a thing, and that's why Ahsoka was able to, because she actually found her real way to do it.
It'd be really cool if, in the Ahsoka series, if in that she brings up how she views the Force, they kind of brought that in, how she, through her journey of becoming independent in the Force, she was able to make it individualistic in how she understood it.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be really cool.
Well, I think there's a lot of grounds to go down that route and believe that, because in all of the canon and non-canon, but canon for this episode's sake, in all of the examples that we've seen, using the Force and mastering the Force takes a lot of mental concentration, at least at first. You have, you talking to, Bell, for example, he can't focus on falling while it's happening. He can in other instances when he's in a more controlled environment and the stakes aren't high, but the second, something grabs his attention more, it's more difficult. Same thing in the Republic Commando, the first Republic Commando novel. Sure, it's expanded universe, but the Jedi in that book she talks about how there's a lot of force ability she can use when she's stationary, she's not under pressure, she's not having to think about it anything but that, too hard. But then the second your attention gets divided,
Right.
she begins to lose the ability to do those things as quickly or as powerfully. So I think there's a lot of evidence to support that claim. And I think on a human level, when we talk about mental health, we talk about counseling or behavioral therapy or positive, just kind of general positive life change. A lot of it is rooted in reframing certain mental aspects. It's also rooted in mental visualization of things, becoming aware, separating yourself and becoming aware and being able to visualize what's going on. Like, for example, in my own struggle with anxiety that I've dealt with in the past, one of the most helpful things was coming to the realization in the moment and separating myself and saying, this is what this is. This is not, this all-encompassing reality. I'm separating myself. This is what it is. And the ability to see things mentally that way is very powerful on multiple fronts. And so I think that's a very long-winded answer to say, yes, I think that very well could be a thing. Because anytime you have a stronger mental connection to something, anytime you find a way, I mean, it's just like learning something new. When it finally clicks, it clicks differently for everyone.
Yeah.
You always have those moments where you've been teaching someone something and it's like, oh, it's just like when this and this and this, and you're like, sure, it's not wrong. If that's the way you see it, great. So I think you could be dead on in that, for Luke, there wasn't anybody, at least during the original trilogy, there wasn't anybody to teach him those things. Like, Yoda didn't have time to get to that, because that's like intermediate, like level 3 force using, where the first stuff that he needed to learn was, okay, how do you protect yourself from the dark side? How do you move objects? How do you use the force to fight? It's like, I just need to teach him what he needs for Vader.
Right.
And that's it. And then Yoda dies, Ben's kind of sporadically in and out. And so, Luke doesn't become much more powerful until later, when he has the time to study and to search for things on his own. And I think that would be when he would have been granted that,
right.
That ability and that depth. But then it is interesting simultaneously, because the dark side users go about it in a very different way. Whereas instead of being this, symbiotic, natural, ebb and flow, two-way relationship with the Force, it's very much, it's always something they're grasping and they're bending to their will. And they're using emotional extremes with anger and hate and passion to fuel that, to make them stronger. So I feel like even that would be drastically different. Like, if we were talking about specifically from like a dark side point of view, Jeremiah, I don't think you would have a map. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I feel like it, because at that point, the Force necessarily isn't something that you explore.
It's more something that you take.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I don't know. I think,
you don't go about it the same way.
Right. But, like, when you look at the life of Anakin, it is his fall into a dark side is because he wants to know knowledge of the dark side. So there is a learning and exploring thing that he desired, which led him into the dark side. But like even he'll say, you don't know the power of the dark side. Like, it's a no thing. And so I get what you're saying. Like, you're right. Yeah. But I think there is still, it's kind of like in The Lion King, when they're looking at the horizon and they see the graveyard. Like the dark side is something you can still explore, but it's not safe.
Yeah.
Well, and then that in and of itself brings us to a completely different kind of area where it's like, well, I personally don't believe that any of those, quote, dark side things are inherently bad. I think the Sith and the dark side users take those and they use them to extremes. But passion, anger, frustration, all of those things are natural. And, fear is a powerful thing when it's used in moderation. Because, fear is the thing that drives us to protect ourselves, to run, the fight or flight type deal.
Right.
But it's when, we take those things to the extreme that it becomes really,
dangerous,
like negatively affecting. Yeah. And so it's like, well, how does that play into your view of the Force? Like for me, if I'm thinking musically, there's certain harmonies that are much more dissonant than others, and used especially like in genres like jazz, used in the right context, surrounded by other different harmonies, it can be very beautiful. But if you fill an entire song with it, it's disgusting. Like no one wants to hear an entire song of half diminished chords. Sure, there's probably one person out there that does, but if you know half diminished chords and you were to do an entire song with those, it's disgusting. Yeah. No one wants to listen to that.
Another reason why you should watch Soul, Andrew. Because it's all about jazz. But
I think this is funny. One of our listeners and viewers, Tanner, said, unless you're in Theory 4. And that brought back memories from my music degree that I don't want to relive.
Well, I told you guys that in high school I wanted to be a composer.
Yeah, you did.
And write musical scores. And the thing that turned it off to me was the first me sitting through a music theory thing. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But, at the same time, Jeremiah, if you're thinking about a map, I'm sure there are places for some reason, every time you're talking about a map, I was thinking about Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Me too.
Masterpiece of a game. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite games.
But it does that it's gray until you explore it.
Yeah.
Thing.
But then, Drew, I know you can agree that there are places on the map that are that are actually bad for your health.
Well, yeah, because there's parts of the map that are fire, lava parts,
right?
Or there's parts of the map,
the desert.
Yes, correct.
Like in the Gerudo, the Gerudo area, where it's in moderation, they can be very, very beneficial because of the things that you can pull from them. But if you stand out there in the middle of the desert without the proper equipment, you're gonna die because you're overheated. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
so it's like if, kind of what Jeremiah was saying too, where you see you're in the Pride Land, but if you want to go to the great beyond, you can, but you might die. Or not everything out there is necessarily good for you. In moderation, it might be good to go see the boneyards for those elephant graveyard, but it doesn't mean you should hang out there because there's hyenas out there,
That is where they live.
Yeah,
proven fact.
Fact.
My source is The Lion King.
Yep, Lion King. Now that is a good movie. And Jeremiah, I don't even want to know.
The cartoon or the live action?
The cartoon. The live action is okay, but
I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, you didn't miss a lot. The final fight between Scar and Simba is pretty cool. But
true.
Do they have swords?
No.
Yes.
That would be cool. Or they had
lightsabers.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Disc. Oh yeah, that too. Sorry, dude, y'all. I grew up on anime of all different types.
Yes,
so it's gonna continue to come out eventually.
This is nothing to do with anything, but Andrew, I forgot to tell you, I finally finished season 3 of Attack on Titans.
Yes.
And that second arc was probably some of the best things I've ever seen in my life. / it brought me as much joy as every time I watched The Mandalorian or any Star Wars. Like, it was that level of enjoyment.
It's really
so
good.
I had to get that off my chest and tell you, Andrew. Like,
I haven't seen season 4 yet.
I haven't either, but
it's on Hulu.
That last, it's if they want to be though.
Yeah.
But that last, arc of season 3 was.
We can
so
talk about
good.
it later. You know how I would honestly, I think it'd be really cool to view the Force
through coffee.
Coffee, you're right. And it just so happens, while we're on the conversation of coffee, that the sponsor of today's episode is a wonderful coffee shop and roaster in Minneapolis. You know it, you love it. It's Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea. Check it out.
Hey everyone, Andrew here. I'm pleased to tell you that the sponsor for today's episode is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea. If you don't know anything about Wesley Andrews, you definitely should. They're an award-winning coffee roaster and shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they make fantastic coffee. The awesome thing is that they have a subscription service that gets those amazing coffee beans delivered to your door on an either weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly basis. Unfortunately, we're all being negatively affected by this virus right now. But that being said, what a better time to try some new coffee and support a local business. I know they'll greatly appreciate it, and we will too. After all, using the code Empire Radio with a capital E and a capital R with no space at checkout, when you start a new subscription at wesleyandrews.cc, you'll get 50% off your first purchase. I can't think of a better deal. Get 50% off, support a local Minneapolis coffee shop, and support your favorite Star Wars podcast. In the words of Emperor Palpatine, do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Go get a coffee subscription. You're gonna like the way you feel. I guarantee it.
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna like the way you look, like Men's Warehouse.
Well, that's what I was going for, but then I was like, that doesn't apply.
You're gonna like the way you look.
Is that even a thing? Do they even have those anymore?
What?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Men's Warehouse or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
As long as there are tuxedos and suits that need to be purchased.
That you can, and weddings to go to, you can still let your rent it for $99.
Sounds like
I hate doing that.
Yeah, me too.
renting a tux.
I hate it.
Why?
Because they always get it
just-
wrong. You
Well,
always
yeah.
your pants are either too short or too long, or your
they're
waist
not-
size never fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I've
Yeah.
worn 3 tuxedos in my life. They fit perfectly every time. So
Here's
Well,
a hot
weird
take.
flex, but okay.
Yeah, that's weird. But here's a hot take. I actually don't like dressing up at all.
We know this. You don't even like ties.
No,
I actually really enjoy it,
I don't.
I hate.
but that's
dressing
just me.
My idea of a great date is
Star
ordering in
Wars.
some well, sure, but ordering in some great food, spending time on the couch, having a meaningful conversation. Like, I don't like going out and going to fancy restaurants. Like, that's not me.
Wait. So is that why you like wearing jeans with holes in it? Because it's like the complete opposite of like formal
Dressing
wear.
up?
No, I like jeans with holes in them because
Because
I
it's
like
fashionable.
It's just part of my style, Jeremiah.
Tanner in the chat
Okay.
said dressing up is the best. But I always just envision Tanner dressing up, but also having his lightsaber on his hilt. So it's probably with full on tux and a lightsaber. That's Tanner right there,
Yeah, that is. I can see that.
and a base on his back.
There's always low end that needs to be dropped, no matter where you are. It's a proven fact, scientifically proven. Yeah. So, the Force. Getting back on track here. Obviously we were discussing that dark side users will obviously encounter that differently. And so one of the things that I've always been curious about is how Anakin grew up with this, light side Jedi way of viewing the Force. We don't know what his personal relationship with the Force is, but it was definitely centered around the Jedi, outlook on the Force. But then he becomes Darth Vader, And so I've always been curious to see how that changes. You know, in the non-canon Dark Lord of the Sith trilogy, which consists of Labyrinth of Evil, the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, which is technically canon, and then Darth Vader, the Rise of Darth Vader. It does, especially in that third book, it does go into detail, as to what he's feeling, the anger and the hatred and the pain, the loss, because it's very, I mean, it's like days, if not like a week or two after he gets in the suit for the first time. It's very close to the end of Revenge of the Sith. So it talks about that, but it doesn't talk about how he views the Force. You know, it talks about him using his anger and using his pain to drive his power. But, you know, I've always been fascinated with that. Like, how does that change?
I wonder if it's something kind of like the Upside Down from
Stranger
Man of
Things.
Culture. I see.
where it's like the same thing, but it's different. It's like a mirror image, but in the opposite direction. So like, I don't know what would be like an example of like something. Like
Well,
maybe like something like the light side of the Force could be like a tree growing.
Indiana.
What?
And then the dark side is just the inverse of Indiana, because it
Indiana.
Hawkins,
What?
Indiana.
Oh, okay.
That's
I was
actually
off.
that's how I view the Force. Indiana,
Okay, we got
just
makes
the
perfect
state
sense.
of Indiana.
But I was like, if a tree is growing and that's the Force, maybe like in the light side of the Force, maybe the dark side of the Force is that same tree
Dying.
decaying and returning to the earth. Like, it's
So
the
like in
same
Lord of the
thing.
Rings, like the white tree, and then
I
they
don't
view
remember
it
anything.
again, and it's like on fire.
Wait, hold on, Jeremiah, you've
I
seen
don't
those,
remember
right?
anything. I've seen them. I thought they were
Don't
not that. We've
Okay.
already
We've
talked
already
about
know this. It just hurts us every
The-
time,
The
Jeremy.
last movie was okay. Like, I get it. It was decent. I just wasn't
I
impressed by
think
it.
you
just
should
because
watch
I
them
saw
again.
I saw it like 15 years after it came out, so like it
Oh,
wasn't
really?
so special because I wasn't in the early stages of new visual technology. So it was like, oh, there's movies way better than this, that visually speaking. But I just didn't care for it. The only good part in the whole entire
don't.
trilogy is when
It better not be when someone dies.
He's gonna say when Gollum
Not-
dies.
not when someone dies, when something dies. When what's his face is fighting the Oliphant, and then the other guy, it was like, that still counts as one. That's my favorite part of the whole thing.
That unlike We
Okay.
Fly Now, that is a good line.
No, that's a great line.
It's a good line.
Anyways, but no, that's a really interesting thought of having it the inverse. Like if I view the Force as some sort of a musical example, the light side of the Force would be much more major in harmony.
Have you seen there's a guy on YouTube that he takes songs that are written in major keys and then puts
Yes.
them in minor?
Yes,
Mhm.
I just recently watched. What was it?
I haven't watched it
Was
in a
it
while.
Don't Stop Believing? Someone sent it to me, and I watched it, and I hated it. It made me want to punch somebody right in the face. But that's just beside the point. So it would be like the inverse of the harmony, or like Jeremiah, your library would just have nonfiction. Just all nonfiction. There's no stories, no fun stuff whatsoever. It's just all nonfiction. And not only that, it wouldn't be just nonfiction. It'd be nonfiction, and it would all be about agriculture.
Mm.
So there would be no books for you to read, and you would hate it.
But you would have to read it.
Yep. Or your map, it would just be a parking lot.
Ooh.
There's nothing
Or
to explore.
desert.
There's just always, well, yeah, you could do that. I was trying to go more funny.
Oh.
Jeremiah's version would be he's in a parking lot trying to find a parking space. There's always more to explore, never a parking space. And when there is one, too small because some jerk overparked. Drew, yours would Honestly, I'm at a loss for that.
It would be like something that would like stop waves from moving. So it'd be like a
Force field.
no. I was thinking kind of
like soundproofing stuff.
yeah, like he's like in an insane
Dampens it.
asylum with his arms like in the thing and like padded walls, and he can't like.
Or just
anywhere.
egg
It's just
cartons
chaos.
everywhere.
It's just chaos.
Just egg cartons
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, the foam.
Just
Your entire
everywhere.
world is made up of soundproofing foam.
But it'd be kind of cool because I can just roll a lot and like not get hurt and do flips everywhere and jump against the walls.
But that's only how you view the Force, not real life.
Oh. So that's what happened when Luke shut himself off to the Force.
If that's what you want to think, sure.
Thank you.
I think Luke was in a parking lot.
I think that version of Luke had a lot of other problems, but
Yeah.
He drank too much of that milk out of those
teats.
teats. That's what shut him off. His mind couldn't
He
think
had a lot
anymore.
of daddy issues. Let's just be real. A lot of daddy issues.
You should have listened to Leia, because as we heard from Micaiah last week, apparently Leia handled that whole situation pretty well.
Yeah, just
She embraced her heritage.
Yeah.
Speaking of last week's episode, if you guys don't know, go check it out. It was really good. Wives of the Empire. But because of that episode, my mom is now reading that book.
That's
because
good.
she just wanted to read it because
That's good.
McKay made it sound so good.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly it is great. I haven't read it. I tend to not gravitate toward those stories, especially the ones that are like really heavily political.
That one's so like I started reading it because
Yeah.
I own it and it was so political. I'm like I can't.
Because I'm like, at one point, are we gonna have a blaster duel or like a lightsaber fight?
Yeah.
Or at least some sort of espionage, but it never happens.
Speaking of a book, I read a Star Wars book over the weekend for the 6th time. I read Lost Star over the weekend. The whole book.
Thing.
Yeah, I did a road trip to Chicago and back in one weekend, and I had enough time to read the whole book.
Were you in the car?
Yep.
You didn't get sick?
No, I was in the front seat.
And he was driving while he was reading. the
No,
book.
no, I was not
Yeah, yeah.
driving.
He's like, and I was actually driving.
No.
And I only killed 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's an all-time low.
But I'm telling you, that's a good book. I like it a lot.
I have started it. I will admit it is good. It's just a little too like teen romancy.
It is
for me to
very
get-
teen
for me to get
romancy.
like super excited.
But then
about it.
once you get towards the end of it, it's really good. And then you find out that the...
Don't spoil this.
Okay, never mind. Are you
Don't
going to
do it.
actually read it?
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
There's a lot of cool things that tied in episode 7 to this book.
Well, yeah, it's one of those Journey to the Force Awakens novels.
True.
So, all right. Well, everyone, you out there in listener world or on Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
how do you view the Force?
Well, Tanner wrote
I'd
how
be-
he views the Force.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tanner relates his. Well, I don't know if that's like exactly how he would view it, but he did relate his a lot to his faith, which makes a
Yes.
lot of sense to me. I've thought about that a lot as well. But how do all of the rest of you view the Force? How would you view the Force if you were a Jedi or a Sith? I'd be very interested to know. Again, if you want to tell us, there are a few ways to do that. One, you can join the Discord. That's the best way, honestly, to do it, because then we can actually respond to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Twitch, if you're in the stream, by the time you get to the YouTube video, if you're not in the Twitch stream already, it's going to be over with. So that's not a good way to do it. You could let us know on Facebook or Instagram in a direct message, but that's not as fun as the Discord. And
But
could
if
leave
you
us
don't
a
have Discord,
voicemail.
you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you could leave us a voicemail. That would be really fun. But again, we can't respond. So what I'm trying to say is you should join our Discord.
But
All that
also
to
do
say-
all those things as well. Also, you can also
yeah.
leave a comment on this video on YouTube as well. That would also help
Yes.
our YouTube algorithm or whatever they call it. And also make sure while you're over there to subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Yep.
So you get
Yeah,
updated when more videos.
Some of you don't know this, but because of my job, one of the things that I've been learning is how much of social media doesn't actually want your stuff to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it may seem like a really silly thing, but leaving a comment on our YouTube videos, liking, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, all of those
Sharing.
things, yeah, help us fight the algorithm to be seen in a sea of millions of other videos. So we really appreciate it. Same thing on Instagram and Facebook. All of those things. I know you live in a world where a lot of people are asking you to do that in different ways, but it does go a long way, and it does make a difference. It's not just stuff you throw away and it never helps. So yeah, so check us out on social media. So should we let them know what's coming next week?
We could, because we might want people to know the source material before we.
Yes. So speaking of the Discord, we got into a conversation. One of our longtime faithful listeners / streamers, Tanner, and I got into a conversation about the original Clone Wars miniseries that aired on Cartoon Network, the 2D animation, Genndy Tartakovsky, like the OG Clone Wars. This is before the animated show was even a thing. So we got into talking about it. I forgot. It'd been a long time since I'd seen it. I started watching him again, and later that night, I was like, guys, we need to do this. We need to do two consecutive episodes on volumes 1 and volume 2. So that's what we're doing. So if you are a fan,
I finished season or volume 1.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they're very easy to watch because there are multiple people that have put them together on YouTube. So it's almost like watching a movie. You just sit down for 2 hours and you watch the whole thing and you're done. Or, 2 like 1 hour and some change versions. But we are going to cover those in the next 2 consecutive episodes. And I for one am really excited about this because it's a part of my childhood. I remember watching those on Cartoon Network when they aired, and the first season, I think it was 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They were 5-minute episodes, and then the second season was like 15-minute. But like I always remember, especially during those 5-minute episodes, they would air at very specific times. It'd be like 11 or 3:55 p.m. And you had to be there for that 5 minutes. And then I watched it, and I always wanted more, and so you have to wait until the next week. And so,
dude, when they show General Grievous for the first time, that's all I have to say.
Hey, leave it for next
That's
week.
all I had
when
to
we
say.
start, we're gonna cover volume 1 or season 1, however you want to view it, of the OG Clone Wars, and then the following week we're gonna do volume 2. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen them, they're really good. They're very entertaining. There are a lot of things you'll see in these that have since carried over into the animated Clone Wars series. There are things that you'll see, especially in volume 2, that were borrowed from like the EU novels. It's a lot of fun. So if you haven't watched it, go on YouTube, type in like OG Clone Wars or like Clone Wars cartoon, and it'll show up.
If you're in our Discord, there also is a link for it in there too. So
yes. So go check those out if you want to be up to date and in the know as to what we're talking about next week. So it's going to be a breakdown, kind of like we've gone other media, like the Star Wars Christmas special.
That was good.
Count down the days until next time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, anything else, boys?
Nope, that's it.
Nope, that should be it.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for being in the Twitch stream if you were. Thank you for being in our Discord, for interacting with us on social media. Just thank you for being a fan. We greatly appreciate it. But without further ado, you have been listening to another episode of the Empire Radio Podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.